Good evening and welcome to this Sunday evening's edition of Arirang News. I'm Daniel Che. We begin with Game 4 of a landmark match of AlphaGo between an AI system developed by Google and Korea's very own Grandmaster Lee Se-dol. After 3 straight losses, man does the seemingly impossible. He has beat the sophisticated computer system. We now connect live to our Iji-won, who is standing by on the phone for us at the Four Seasons Hotel where the tournament is being held. Ji-won, a lot of celebrations there in Korea and around the world. We were supposed to lose to this cold calculating machine that does not understand the concept of fatigue, injury, or the ravages of time or losing. So definitely a reason for us to celebrate here. Tell us how it happened.
That's right, Daniel. After 180 moves and over 4 hours and 30 minutes, the longest game yet, Korea's Lee Se-dol finally got his first victory against artificial intelligence supercomputer AlphaGo in their 4th historic match of Baduk, or Go as it's known in the rest of the world. AlphaGo was winning the game in the beginning, but after a number of creative and original attacks by Lee Se-dol in the middle of the match, it seemed like AlphaGo was confounded, and then it made a number of mistakes, leading AlphaGo to forfeit. Well, AlphaGo won the first 3 games in their best-of-5 game tournament, but Lee's victory is very meaningful as it shows that human intelligence has not yet been outsmarted by AI. Well, that's all I have for now. Back to you, Daniel.
Well, thank you for those wonderful updates, Ji-won. Moving on, Korea's major political parties are speeding up their candidate nominations ahead of a parliamentary election just 1 month from today. The process has been held up by infighting within each party, delaying nominations for districts caught in the crossfire. Woo Soo-young gives us the details.
30 days ahead of the April elections, Korea's main political parties are rushing to finalise their list of nominees for district representatives ahead of the intra-party primaries. The ruling Saenuri Party is expected to announce its 5th round of nominees on Sunday. Lee Hang-go, the chairman of the party's nomination committee, said Sunday morning that candidates for the most politically sensitive districts, such as Daegu in Gyeongsangbuk-do province and Gangnam in Seoul, would be screened that day. He failed to answer, however, whether Chairman Kim Moo-sung will be on the list. Kim is involved in a factional feud, which could be a factor in whether he is able to gain the backing of enough of his fellow lawmakers to win the nomination. The party has selected nominees for 172 districts so far, with 81 still undecided. Meanwhile, the main opposition, the Minju Party of Korea, is also holding a last-minute candidate screening session following internal conflicts. The party has completed the screening process for 194 districts, with 32 to go. It will hold its first round of primaries and telephone surveys across 18 districts on Sunday. As for the minor opposition, the People's Party, it is holding its 3rd round of screening and the list of nominees will be announced on Monday. This comes amid an internal dispute over the prospect of an electoral alliance with the Minju Party, which has delayed the screening process for areas in the liberal stronghold of Jeollanam-do. At a press conference on Sunday, party founder and co-chairman An Chol-soo reaffirmed that he is against the merger. Woo Soo-young, Arirang News.
A U.S. nuclear-powered supercarrier arrived in Busan this morning. It's the latest addition to an ongoing combined military exercise between the two allies and the latest show of force after North Korea's nuclear and missile tests. Kim Min-ji tells us more.
The USS John C. Stennis nuclear-powered supercarrier arrived in the southern port city of Busan on Sunday to participate in an ongoing annual military exercise between South Korea and the United States. The 100,000-ton vessel is the size of 3 football fields and is loaded with some 80 advanced aircraft. The supercarrier will lead the USS John C. Stennis Strike Group, which consists of the Stennis, as well as guided missile destroyers, USS William P. Lawrence, and USS Stockdale, among others. Seoul and Washington launched the drills last week called Key Resolve and Fall Eagle, during which they aim to strengthen their defense cooperation against North Korea's escalating nuclear and missile threats. The deployment of the supercarrier is one in a series of military assets the U.S. has dispatched to the peninsula in a show of force after North Korea's provocations earlier this year. After the North's nuclear test in January, the U.S. deployed a B-52 strategic bomber to South Korea, and in February, following the North's missile test, it dispatched the nuclear-powered USS North Carolina attack submarine. The U.S. also sent 4 F-22 stealth bombers to South Korea last month. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The U.S. ambassador to South Korea says the new sanctions on North Korea should be the lever that gets Pyongyang back to the negotiating table. He also stressed the focus should be on implementing the sanctions before anything else. Kwon So-hwa shares with us Mark Lippert's views.
Until any progress or willingness is seen from North Korea to come back to the negotiating table, the U.S. will keep its diplomatic strategy of hindering Pyongyang from developing its nuclear and missile programs by sanctioning the regime, according to U.S. Ambassador to South Korea Mark Lippert during a recent interview.
Our policy, especially with respect to the peace regime, North Korea remains unchanged. Denuclearization is our #1 priority. We are now working to implement the UN Security Resolution sanctions, and we remain in close coordination and close consultation with partners in the Republic of Korea government.
The foremost focus on sanctions was also stressed when the ambassador was asked about whether China's idea of a two-track approach to North Korea that aimed to conduct peace treaty talks and denuclearization talks in tandem will affect the U.S. in some way.
Look, we continue to talk to Chinese friends. Everybody from Secretary Kerry, Deputy Secretary Blinken, Assistant Secretary Russell have all been to China in the not too near past. And we continue to talk to the Chinese about a way forward and how we can resume six-party talks. But I think right now, in the immediate term, the focus is on strong implementation of the sanctions and making sure that sanctions are as effective as possible to drive the North Koreans back to the negotiating table.
While Lippert said it's too early to speculate on the synergy effects of the multilateral and unilateral sanctions, their efficacy will show in slowing and curtailing the regime's nuclear and missile development, and that they are designed to sharpen North Korea's choice in whether to abide by international rules or not. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
The former chair of the Commission of Inquiry on North Korean Human Rights has recommended setting up a panel of experts to study how human rights abuses in the communist state can be dealt with. Speaking at a conference in London on Friday, Michael Kirby also pointed to a need for international cooperation so that human rights violators in North Korea can be handed over to the International Criminal Court. To gain progress on this front, the commissioner emphasized the importance of keeping China engaged at the UN Security Council. North Korea says it could wipe out the island of Manhattan if it were to launch an intercontinental ballistic missile loaded with a hydrogen bomb. Citing an article by a North Korean nuclear scientist, a state-run propaganda outlet called DPRK Today says the North possesses everything from miniaturized nuclear warheads to intercontinental ballistic missiles. The scientist added that the North's hydrogen bomb is much more powerful than those developed by the former Soviet Union. Pyongyang claims that its fourth nuclear test in January involved a hydrogen bomb, but the claim has been widely disputed in the international community, given the relatively low blast yield. In a separate article, the media outlet repeated the claim that the North has successfully miniaturized a nuclear warhead that can be placed on a ballistic missile and said that it's not a mock-up. Last week, the North released a picture of what it claimed was the warhead to widespread skepticism from the West. The regime says it is high-tech military hardware the world does not know about. For the first time in 3 years, Korea's wage growth rate has overtaken its economic growth rate. According to South Korea's Ministry of Finance and the Labor Ministry, the average wage at a company with more than 5 employees was roughly $2,500 in 2015, up by 2.7% from the year before. That's 0.1% higher than the 2.6% increase in the country's growth rate that year. That may seem good, but a closer look reveals that for 5 straight years since the year 2011, the figure had barely come close to even half of the economic growth rate. Some analysts point out that this is a long overdue development, and there have been too few returns to workers in comparison to economic growth so far. They say the government must come up with more policies to improve the country's stagnant wages. A new generation of IT devices is making driving easier and safer. Whether you want a better view of your car's blind spots or want to keep better track of its internal systems, it's worth checking out the latest information and communications technology developments. Our Kim Mo-kyun shows us 2 new gadgets that could come in handy when you're on the road.
There are many factors a driver has to consider behind the wheel. Sometimes adjusting your rear-view mirror is not enough to check blind spots, and drivers often find themselves looking over their shoulders. As popularity grows for smart cars in Korea and overseas, a number of technologies are being developed to make driving easier. By looking at a video monitor, a driver will be able to see nearly every angle of the car's exterior with the help of high-definition cameras.
Many car accidents happen since the driver has to look at the rear view and side mirrors to check blind spots. But with the help of camera technology, such risks could definitely be reduced.
Drivers can also check on the state of their car's equipment with their smartphone. A device that monitors interior vehicle information connects to the smartphone through wireless technology, making it easier for car owners to know how all systems are running. At this stage of the Internet of Things, the potential of how these smart technologies could develop seems boundless. Kim Mo-gyan, Arirang News.
With less than 3 years to go until Pyeongchang hosts the Winter Olympics, the International Olympic Committee is back in Korea to assess the preparations for the global event. The IOC team, headed by Gunilla Lindberg, will arrive in Korea on Monday. The group will start with a tour of the Olympic venues, media villages, and athletes' residences in Gangneung, located east of Pyeongchang. On Tuesday, the team will meet with local organizers to discuss the preparations for Olympic test events, venue construction, marketing strategies, and transportation plans. They will wrap things up with a press conference on Wednesday at Lakai Sandpine Resort in Gangneung. The IOC's next visit is scheduled for October 4th. Now for a quick look at the weather before we go. Get ready to dress a bit lighter starting Monday. And as the week progresses, you'll forget that it was ever winter here in Korea. Seoul will start out the day on Monday at 2 degrees Celsius, and Daejeon and Gwangju will be at 0. Then the mercury will rise all the way up to 10 in Seoul and 11 in Daejeon and Gwangju. But if you're in the capital, be advised a low level of fine dust could dampen your day. That's the outlook for Korea. Here's a look at the conditions around the world. That's a wrap for us. Thank you for watching.